Good evening. I'm going to go ahead and open tonight's October 28th meeting of the Kalispell City Council. Tonight's a work session. I want to point out that there will not be any decisions made tonight on anything, but we're doing work session to give direction to staff. So I know there's been a little bit of confusion out there about what we're doing tonight. So I wanted to correct that notion. And can I get a roll call?
Council President Graham.
Here.
Councilor Dowd. Councilor Dahlman. Councilor Fisher.
Here.
Councilor Hunter.
Here.
Councilor Nunnally.
Here.
Councilor Carlson.
Here.
Councilor Gabrielle.
Here.
And Mayor Johnson.
Note that
And
Mr.
Councilor
Dowd
Dowd.
There we go. Okay, we got our quorum is present, and gonna go ahead and get into our item tonight for our work session. It's concerns with downtown traffic on Friday nights, and I'll turn it over to City Manager Russell.
Yeah, Council President, Council, just briefly hitting the items really following the memo that was put out. Previously this summer, I think it's back in July, Council had received public comment with concerns related to activity in the downtown, specifically on Friday nights. A lot of it related to, activity that was violating the law, be it racing of engines, speed, exhibition driving, things of those natures. At that time, Council provided direction to staff to look at the issues and areas of concern, including what other controls maybe other municipalities have used related to that event. Since that time, law enforcement has been addressing some of those law enforcement roles and violations. One of the challenges, you're talking about a large, broad area that is really an event. You're talking about things that would normally be under a parade or a special event permit. You have numerous intersections with high congestion. Any given Friday, you may have 5 officers on duty, and that's just not enough for that type of control. And they're not planned events, so that's why you're going to still see some of these activities, because you may have, out of those 5, you may have 3 that are looking at the area and the 2 for the rest of the town for that night. So that's why you're still going to see some of these areas, because you're going to see illegal activity in other areas that we just can't hit. Chief has been bringing some people in and scheduling them for added resources, but then some of those nights nothing occurs. It's kind of an organic development. So that's why you're seeing some of those challenges, and additional law enforcement sometimes helps, but sometimes it really creates inefficient resources, and sometimes just not enough resources, depending on what the event is and how activity occurs. Along those, during that time, we looked out and basically looked at other communities and what they've done for similar related issues. And really, it's a common theme in terms of, the ordinances that have been provided. Had 3 in the packet, sent 2 out earlier or later on this summer, probably in August or so. And it's a general consensus of what they do in those typical areas is to try and address it through some sort of traffic control measure that, provides a number of times anyone can pass in a specific point in time. A typical standard anti-cruising ordinance is what it typically is labeled and identified, but really to try and reach and hit some of those things that are disrupting and leading to some of the concerns and complaints. So those were provided, like I said, in August or sometime in that avenue. At one of our most recent meetings is requested to bring it to a work session for council discussion on the matter to see if they wanted to look at anything further. Hence, we had the agenda provided, and what we're looking for tonight is direction from council, if you want us to look at a formalized draft ordinance for Kalispell specifically. Like I said, the 3 that were provided are just samples, and they're kind of similar all across the country. Municipalities have enacted something to that. If we were to provide something, it'd be steered more towards, incorporating what would be effective in Kalispell. But really, the next step is for the council discussion to see if council wants to go that further. So at the end of the night, I'll be looking for that direction from council to see if the majority of council wants to go forward with an ordinance of this nature at another future work session. So with that, be happy to turn it over to council for your discussion and any questions that we can answer.
Okay, yeah, council, questions, just discussion, Mr. Dowd?
So first off, I'm going to apologize ahead of time that you're in charge of this meeting. I haven't come to a council meeting this incensed for a long time. Reading these sample ordinances, I couldn't think of, this has got to be in the top, if not the most or the worst legislation for municipal areas that I've ever seen in my life. It violates a lot of human rights that are outlined in the Bill of Rights, the Fourth, the First, and it also is, it's a treatise on how to limit human movement. Like if your majesty would allow, may I drive on the streets that I paid for as many times as I want. So I'm going to be vehemently against this, and I will do everything in my power, hopefully to make sure that it doesn't go to council, an actual council meeting. And if it does, I will fight it tooth and nail.
Jed?
I made notes on the way over here because this too has been eating at me. Kalispell Cruise is about as American as it gets. I've gone. I've done it a half a dozen times. I took my now almost 90-year-old mother with me. She loved it. I went to the very first one when people had been locked down, depressed, hadn't had a thing to do, actually could get out of the house, enjoy each other. Yeah, there was a few people do a burnout. I had a 61 Corvair. I couldn't. I broke down. I brought my Z28 next time. But it was embarrassing. Some nice truck had to tow me home, so all was well and fine. But I agree with so much of what you said, Sid, but I'll probably take it a little further. People felt alive again during that time when everybody was following all these bizarre rules. People waving at each other, the elderly, kids safe enough to stand on Main Street to watch the nice cars go by. Photographers out there taking pictures was probably dang good for business. I remember a couple places being opened down at the south end of town. You could pull in, they had a special stand set up. People coming in from other towns, good for commerce. Get to see other cars. So enjoyable. It just is something that I can't believe that it's gotten this far in agreeing with Mr. Dowd. This has been happening for decades. This is nothing unique to, although better organized here. You'll see Monty, the gentleman, I'm on the page, in full disclosure, I'm on the page. He will put out notices when the police department has had complaints or he sees some of these things out there. He'll say, slow it down a little bit, be respectful. Most people are. Most are so good. Of course but there's going to be those people anyhow that will do it. It's been happening every Friday night since I was a kid in Conrad, Montana. It's not going to go away by doing some ordinance. It's probably better to have an organized group to put some ground rules or to help the police department, who God knows they're busy enough without worried about. I know you have to staff it. I get some of the neighborhood complaints, but I believe more public education and just mainly people want to show off their nice cars they've put tens of thousands of dollars into. They're not out to cause an accident or run over somebody or hurt anybody. They just want to show off their car. They're doing business downtown. They're buying stuff at Napa. They're buying stuff at CarQuest. They're proud of their vehicle, and people are proud for the most part to go see them. There always will be people who will break the law, and that has to be dealt with. We've hired a few more people. Hopefully we can staff it when we can. I will not be any part of taking this away from our people, our citizens who pay for these roads. I'd rather have people driving the streets, more than likely not drinking because they don't want to get pulled over, than in the bars or in some place else doing things, than out enjoying their vehicle and seeing people admire what they've worked hard for. And even, I thought, okay, is this a rich, poor thing? No, I even see Monty, bring all your cars. I don't care if it's an old station wagon or old Pinto or whatever vehicle. It doesn't matter if it's a fancy sports car. Bring everything you have. Show that. I see army trucks. I see a big 2-3 ton everything out there. It's America. We cannot take this away from our people. Back on this, we don't even have a bowling alley here anymore. What are people supposed to do? Just sit at home and not do anything? This is something that people can actually get out and enjoy. Don't have a racetrack. Don't have a bowling alley. I'm not saying this is the place to race, but it's certainly a place to get people together and enjoy something fun. I'm sorry about those who have a complaint. Again, I go back on Monty's notices, or whoever is doing their website. And I repeat, this is good for business. If I had my way, we'd make it a cruise town. Let's invite, and they come in from Libby, they come in from Cutbank, they come in from Browning, Big Fork. A Missoula group came up, if I read my stuff right one time, a Spokane group came in, and vice versa. Some of our people go to their cruise nights. America, right? If we pass something like this, I thought, what could be next? What could be next? That somebody out there comes to this council and they're upset and complaining because a legally harvested deer elk was being hauled down Main Street and it offended them. This dead animal in the back of this vehicle offends me. I don't think they should be able to go down Main Street. Not during the day, not when a kid could see it. This is about as Montana American as it gets too. Do we pass an ordinance that says you can't haul your wild game through town anymore? Or you do, you have to go certain streets, you have to go certain areas because it offends somebody? It could be next, right? Somebody could get upset about that. To me, in agreeing with Mr. Dowd, I will fight this. You know my vote already. I can't even believe it's gotten this far. I get it because we have to respond to everybody, but this will be a hard no for me to pass anything that says our people cannot use our streets. The end of rant.
Brian?
Yeah, thank you. I certainly want to acknowledge the origin of this coming out, or the current iteration of it coming out of the COVID pandemic, and the desire to be out in public without kind of the social interaction that people were concerned about. And that was great, and I think it raised some money, which is also great. And I recognize, obviously, there's a lot of joy that's drawn from it. And people are out there, as we just heard from Mr. Fisher, a real enjoyment of the event. And so I want to recognize that and acknowledge it. I do think, though, there are real impacts, and it's not the kind of impacts being offended about hauling a deer down the road or something. That's trivializes it. We've heard about reckless driving, and certainly that's been documented in video, and people who are present seen it, reported it. That's a big part of this, and we can't be policing it at all times. So that's an issue. Another part of it, though, a big part of it, is the noise. I live 3 blocks away from Main Street. I hear it in my house with the windows closed and the doors closed, and I hear it at 1 a.m. I've woken up at 1 a.m. hearing it. We've received public comment from other people who live near Main Street, same complaint. We've heard comments from parents with young kids, babies and toddlers, who they have trouble getting their kids to sleep because it's so loud. That's very disruptive to the community. We talked about, I heard mention of it being positive for businesses. So far, the comments I've heard from businesses on Main Street is not positive at all. A part of it's the noise. A number of businesses who lodge people on Main Street have had to give numerous refunds to their guests because they said that their night was ruined sleeping on Main Street. They could not go to sleep because of the noise. They said they were never coming back to our town. There are businesses that used to have events on Friday night, and they no longer have the events on Friday night because of the disruption, because of the noise. We've had public comment from the community saying they used to enjoy going downtown and shopping and enjoying our downtown on Friday nights. They don't do that anymore because it's so disruptive. And then, of course, there's also air pollution, frankly, that's produced by this event. Hey, I can smell it from my 3 blocks away from Main Street. I don't smell exhaust on any other time, but I do Friday nights. So I do have some questions for Chief Venezio. In terms of being and enforcing this, would it be, in your opinion, more difficult or easier if it were enforced as a total ban or a restriction on timing of the event? In other words, so I could see some arguments that would say, well, it's easier to enforce if it were a total ban than something that allows it to happen, but only during certain time frames, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think there's two things to look at there's the legality side of an ordinance in general, which I would defer to Ms. Preble on that. As far as enforcing a specific zone, it could be done. It would be resource intensive, essentially having to have an officer sit there, notice a passing car, timestamp it, have another car come by. So it could be enforced, reading the ordinances. The legality side, I don't really have any comment on that or knowledge of what has been done in the past or how that's been perceived before.
Because I'm thinking about the permit idea, because it is like an event, and with events, we typically do require permits. I understand this is kind of loosely organized. Is it something where, because I would prefer avoiding a straight ban, because I recognize the value that some people find in it. But at the same time, allowing it to happen every week or the weeks that people choose to show up and have it sometimes going until 1 a.m, I don't think that's fair to the community. So having a permit system that says, okay, there's certain rules by this. Maybe it occurs over a 2-hour period on a Friday night, 7 to 9, maybe once a month, rather than, and we can, the organizer can choose which Friday that is during the month. And we have kind of rules around the permit. They come in, they apply for the permit, maybe have insurance for some of these reckless drivers that are out there. Could we make a system like that work?
From a law enforcement perspective, I don't see how we could possibly differentiate which cars are involved in a permitted cruise, which cars aren't involved, who lives in the neighborhood, who doesn't live in the neighborhood. I see that being very problematic.
Yeah, I wouldn't see the permit as being on those particulars. It would be more this kind of idea that from these ordinances, the third pass, right? That you can have that third pass under a permitted event during a certain time period, but outside those permitted times, then this ordinance kicks in and you can't have that third pass in an hour.
The challenge with the permit system is really there is no individual organizer. So who do you issue the permit to?
But if they want, not now, but if we say this ordinance applies unless you have a permit, then it forces them to have an organizer who comes and
That'd be correct.
produces a permit.
Yep, that'd be
request.
correct, just like a parade or anything else.
Right.
So what you'd be saying, but I mean, you'd have to pass this ordinance
Right.
and then allow it through a permit system.
Right. Yeah, amended ordinance that allows it through a permit. It would require some organization on the part of folks participating to kind of have somebody step forward, apply for the permit, understand the rules as part of that permit. I guess that would be a direction that I'd be interested in exploring.
Mr. Nunley?
Thank you. I wholeheartedly agree with both of you, Sid and Jed. This is absolute no. I think it's ridiculous that we take it even further. We've got 3 no's so far up here. I don't even see why we do this, right? It's absolutely crazy. I don't know how we could ever do a permit type thing. The best thing that we have is our fine officers that do their job, right? If they see somebody doing something bad, okay, give them pull them over. We already have that on the books. If we go for adding anything like this on, I would be looking to start removing ordinances left and right out of the city of Kalispell. So I am a hard no, and I'm a cruiser. I'll say it, right? My son's a cruiser. I love it, right? Yeah. I don't like going out sometimes and people are burning out the tires, right? But that's already addressable by law enforcement. So I just don't think we need to go any further.
Ms. Gabriel?
Thank you, Mr. President. We have a problem, and I think we need to try to find a solution for it. I don't want to see it banned. I think I agree with what was said. It's a fun thing for the community. It's something that started during COVID. I also have a classic car. I don't cruise anymore, but maybe someday I'll cruise again. But I think we have to address the noise. It's rude, it's obnoxious. People come to our town on vacation, and just imagine staying in the apartments above Main Street and the noise that must be rattling off of both sides of those buildings. So I think we have to figure out a way to address the noise, the speeding, the burnouts, the reckless driving. All that needs to be addressed. And I think Chief Finizio, what he's saying is it's hard for them to be in 10 places at once when they have 5 officers. So I think we have to discuss it more, but I really don't want to see it go away. We do already have a parade permit process in place. I mean, I used to be part of a group that put on a car show here, and there is already a permit process. It costs money. It's not free. So if we're going to tell them they have to go that direction, they have to formally organize and apply for a permit. I live up in Northridge. I can hear the noise at my house on some Friday nights. So it's loud, and that's my biggest concern. And I'm hoping we could also ask the organizers, however loosely organized they are, to please maybe operate within certain hours so that they're not going until 1 o'clock in the morning, as Mr. Hunter mentioned. That's just rude to do to your fellow citizens. I'm very nervous that if they're driving as recklessly as some have described, that somebody's going to get hurt, whether it's somebody in the parade or it's a pedestrian trying to cross the street. So I'm open for discussion on it. I do think that we need to figure out some kind of a compromise that will allow people to still go downtown and enjoy an evening out and still allow people to be able to sleep at night. I'm not sure what the answer is, but I think we have to try to figure something out. Thank you.
So the reason why I keep gaveling that down is because there's other opinions in the room, and when you're clapping like that, it may go through during public comment and have them feel that they can't stand up and give public comment without, that intimidation. So we get it. It's not a vote or a poll or anything. So let's try to just have our discussion without the backup of all the applause and stuff. Mr. Dowd?
Before I go again, is there any of our council members that are zoomed in that want to speak? No? All right, well, I'd like to address the permitting part that was brought up. So first off, I don't think this is a formal event. I think this is kind of a loose gathering of people that happens on Friday night. If we did make an event and we restricted Friday night, what's to stop them from just doing it on Saturday night? If that doesn't happen, then we could do a Thursday night. I mean, people will get around. If you put government costs or whatever in front of them, they'll get around it. There's already kind of a permitting process in place. It's called, and I don't actually like these either, but it's called a driver's license and a license plate on a public road. We already have that. People are allowed to be there. The road was built by them. You can't actually implement any of these ordinances without checkpoints, government monitoring and tracking of citizens. And that might fly in some other cities in Montana, but I don't think it's going to fly here. We have noise ordinances already. We have public nuisance ordinances already. Those take care of the two major things that are being complained about with this, which is the noise and the like the burnouts or whatever, right? Those are both ticketable offenses. And these guys know that, right? I think, just a call for being a little bit more respectful would be fine. I don't cruise because I don't want to waste my gas and I don't want to burn out my tires, right? So even though I do have a 70 Nova, but it needs a little help right now. But anyway, I think we have everything in place that we need. We have more law enforcement that are coming online. I don't even think that our police would want to enforce this kind of an ordinance, and it would be actually very hard for them to do that. And how do you do it without tracking citizens, right? So I don't know what the general feeling of the council is. I don't know how long we have to proceed before we figure out if we're going to take this to an actual council session or not. But maybe it would be good to just take a quick poll of who wants to advance this and who doesn't before we waste a lot of time.
No, let's finish discussion first.
Well, that's fine. We've had everybody talk. Nobody online wanted to talk. I was giving everybody a chance first, so that's why I brought it up. Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. President. Carrie, and Ryan, Carrie, I've always respected your opinion so much. That's why your board has elected you for 20 years. And I get what you're crying out for, or desperately trying to seek here. And I think this is going to help that between the press, between the group, which is loosely organized. I don't think it's really a formal thing, but they've done so many good things, like you've even mentioned, in raising funds for kids who have been hurt, athletes who have been hurt. I think they're capable enough of working with the police department and doing some public service announcements and saying this is at risk if we don't begin working together and trying to keep a certain corridor, the noise down a little bit, not doing the burnouts there, go out of town and do your what. I mean, although it's still going to happen, you're never going to take that away. It's going to move to a different date. It's never going to go away. But I believe just communicating with the group and saying, hey, they could come back with something crazy and not let us drive our own roads that we pay taxes on if we don't quiet it down. There's people who, I didn't know of people who were asking for refunds. I've only heard the positive. So to your credit, if those things are happening and had an impact on people, I just think, I read the crews today, they call them Karens, is what is said out there in the real Kalispell world, that somebody always will have something to complain about, and they still will. There still will be trucks that come down Main, even though there's a bypass and it upsets everybody. There'll still be farm equipment bothers people out in the county roads because they can't go by the swather or the combine. I know you say I trivialize things by talking about deer, elk, but you cannot legislate everything. Things are going to happen, and I just believe a little bit of public outreach of saying, save your tires a little bit. Maybe go to Evergreen if you want to really get after it. That was terrible. Sorry, city manager.
Nice.
I'm
To get some
sorry.
mail now.
You cannot legislate everything from this. I think we talk about lawsuits, man. This is number one for being sued when your people are told when they can drive up and down the streets they pay for. We'll keep going back to that. But I believe, Carrie, you are so respected by me that something can be done in public outreach and the media. And hey, let's just calm it down a little bit after midnight. Seems reasonable.
We have isn't it a 10 o'clock? 10 o'clock noise
Okay.
ordinance goes into effect?
Then fine, and hopefully we all support the police department, and hopefully word spread when they see somebody pull over that does something stupid, God forbid. Has anybody ever been seriously injured in a cruise event? And some aren't truly cruise events. Have there been? I'm not asking you, I'm asking the chief, sorry.
We have had reports on near misses and crosswalks with burning out cars. No critical injuries that I'm aware of,
Okay.
but certainly calls on very close, dangerous situations.
And that should be a concern for all of us. That would be a terrible, terrible thing if somebody got into it and there's people along the street taking pictures and terrible. I just believe public education is where it's at.
Yeah, couple of things. I'll repeat what I mentioned at a previous meeting, which is, I've been reluctant to bring this forward. It's been going on for 4 years, and I haven't living near Main Street, I'll be honest, I haven't liked it for 4 years. But I recognize the joy people have gotten from it. I've been reluctant to bring it forward. And I only brought it forward because of the level of complaints that I started hearing, and that it's not just affecting me, and it's not just my opinion. A lot of people are. So in terms of legislating, I agree. I mean, I don't like it when government gets too in the weeds of things, and all those examples I would consider ridiculous as well. This is different. This is a big event happening often that has fairly significant negative impacts on a large group of people. So I do consider it considerably different. In terms of the permit issue of getting around the permit with different days, the way I see permit working is this ordinance would be in fact on all days. The permit is the exception, and it's up to the group that's organizing it to choose. I mean, it doesn't have to be Friday night. You want to make it Saturday night, you want to make it Wednesday night. Whoever comes in for the permit, they can choose whatever day what they want, and that's the day that they get the exemption from the ordinance against cruising. In terms of existing ordinance on noise and nuisance, I'd ask our staff, can we enforce that against an event like this? And if so, why haven't we?
Well, the noise ordinance is not very specific. And again, you're just going to run into the same problem of a large number around, and who are you going to point that to in terms of which one is specifically responsible if you have a lot of engines being raced? Chief, I defer to you as well for your input from
Yeah.
being out there.
So really, we have a couple laws that are on the books that really address, because cruising is not no one's calling in because, hey, this vehicle is driven by for the third time. No one's calling us for that, right? It's loud engines, burnouts, reckless driving. So we have an ordinance for racing engines. And so anytime you're in a car and you're revving the engine really loud, that's already an ordinance violation. The problem for law enforcement is we may hear it, but we don't know specifically what car it came from. So then the enforcement of that is difficult, and it's not done very often. Reckless driving, when we see it, we can enforce that. There have been issues, some of the downtown businesses, those vacant parking lots, we're having people wet down the roadways with hoses so that cars can burn out. It has been very dangerous on some Friday nights. 90% of the people down there are fine. It's finding a way for the small number of people who are being reckless that we can enforce those laws. And it really, will come down to the amount of resources we can allocate to it. We have increased the amount of officers on Friday nights, and we have seen an impact on safer driving. It's just our staffing is just now increasing enough where that could be more helpful.
Yeah, and I think I recognize that one, there's just a problem with that enforcement on an event like this, that it's not going to be perfect in addressing the problems, but also that the effect is the cumulative effect, right? So like noise, you can have a noisy car drive down the street, it passes, okay, I don't like hearing it, but it's over. When it's lots of cars for hours until 1 a.m, that's a different issue. But who do you ticket? It's not any one car. It's all the cars over hours, making the noise. So the noise ordinance, I appreciate that we have some ordinances that kind of touch on some of these, but we can't enforce them in a way that's going to be effective to really get at what the complaints are. And that's where I see doing something more is what's needed in order to try to get to that. And again, not trying to end it, but trying to put some sideboards on it. I think it's needed.
Ms. Gabriel?
Thank you, Mr. President. I would agree with your last comment, Mr. Hunter, about not seeing the event end. I have zero problem with cruising. I think cruising is great. It's a tradition. That's what I did in high school. We did it every Friday and every Saturday night. But we weren't racing, and I think that's the big thing, is the racing, the burnouts, all of that, the extra noise. So maybe the sideboards would include, a time frame. I really want to hear from businesses that are trying to operate downtown on Friday night to see if they're having a problem. Because I'd be curious what their input would be. We've heard from a few people that own apartments above businesses, but I don't think we got any email from actual businesses to find out, if it's disruptive. Can you have dinner at Hops? Or is it too noisy now and you can't hear in there? That's the kind of thing I guess I'm asking. So I would really like to hear from businesses on that, and want to make sure everybody understands, from my perspective, I think cruising is fine. It's the bad apples that are showing off and doing stupid things that are ruining it for everybody. That is why we're even having this discussion. If people were just cruising, maybe the occasional thing happening, but this is beyond just little things happening. It's happening a lot. So, I don't live down there, so I'm not having to deal with it, in my face. But like I said, I can hear it from my house on Friday nights occasionally. Thank you.
Mr. Nunley?
Well, I guess everyone else had a couple bites at the apple. I'll take another bite at it too. I actually lived on Main Street in one of those apartments above one of the buildings down there. Yep. Heard it all the time, even when it wasn't crews, right? Semi trucks, all of it. And they rattle it up and down. My job, I get to go up and be in the courthouse quite a bit, the old courthouse. And it's amazing when, Jed, you may have felt this too. You're sitting there in a meeting and all of a sudden the entire building shakes and you wonder if it's an earthquake or not. And it's just a semi truck. But I'm not going to legislate for that. My house now, actually, I texted Chief the other day because we had a group of people that were running motorcycles up and down for hours on end and just going crazy. I don't live anywhere near Main Street, but it happens no matter where it is, and I'm not going to enforce some kind of rule on that, right? We already have the laws on the book, right? That's what I keep coming back to. Back in my days when I cruised, yep, we had the same kind of folks that would always push to the limits. And KPD or a sheriff's department or highway patrol would address that with those folks, and we'd still spend hours down there. I remember you'd go out and start at Hardee's in the parking lot and go all the way down to Rosar's south of town and then make the same dumb circle back. It was a blast. We had a lot of fun. And I would not want to take that away from anybody. I get it. It's loud. It's loud on Main Street. It's loud all over town. We start trying to go and create ordinances or permits or anything like that for here. It's just a slippery slope of, okay, all of Kalispell. We get Ryan's dream of everyone sell your cars and everybody get bicycles and walk. Right?
Don't make stuff up, Sam.
It's, you've said it.
I have not said that, actually.
So I guess that's where I'm at on this is I'm still a no on it. So.
Ma'am, I'll open up public comment when we're done, so I'm sure everybody is going to want to speak. So, yeah, I don't know. The thing about the permit aspect of it, I don't really agree with, because it seems to me that it's not like a parade. A parade is more, it's sectioned off, right? There's no other traffic that goes through and integrates in with the parade. So the problem with the parade or permit aspect of it is you're going to have a single person or a group going through applying for that and then being possibly infiltrated by other traffic coming in, and they could be going and doing something bad, and then maybe the permit holder would go and get blamed for that. So I'm not really for that. And then some of the other things about some of these sample ordinances, and they're sample ordinances, this isn't stuff we're looking at possibly doing, they're sample ordinances to see what's happening elsewhere. The things with those is, especially to me when it seems tracking vehicles, is it seriously just somebody sitting there counting vehicles and seeing how many times they go back and forth, or is it?
Well, that'd be the only way to identify.
Right, okay. So
Singular point.
I look at that as a waste of a resource, and I agree with what you guys are saying too about it. But I'm trying to look at it from a different approach because there's been a lot of discussion saying the same, and I kind of tend to think that I agree with Miss Gabriel, but where I come down with it is we have laws on the books, like Mr. Nunley said. We do have laws on the books. It's just a matter of getting them to where they're finding the right purpose at the right time. I think that cruising, as you've said, Mr. Fisher, is an American thing, and it has been forever. I would like to see respect brought into it by those that aren't respecting it, because, it is infrastructure, and it could tear it up, and there could be, accidents and stuff, but to go and implement a permit process or something like that, to me seems flawed. So I'm gonna agree not to take it to a further meeting, but Mr. Dowd.
Yeah, so, well, just in a sweeping generality here, my freedom is great. Allowing everybody else's freedom is kind of a pain sometimes, right? But that's what we have to do to allow them to, give us our freedom. The event permit idea will effectively shut this down if we do it, because you can't even get, a permit requires event insurance. You cannot get event insurance right now for a political event at all. And I don't see how they're going to permit a whole bunch of vehicles, cruising up and down in a certain area. I just don't see them allowing for that, which if you can't get the event insurance, then you can't get the event permit. So I would be I would be against that for sure. There's other things that we have to put up with from time to time that that we don't like, right? And even though I love football, I can hear football happening in town when it happens, right? But I don't want to go over there and shut it down. I understand, that those are people that are enjoying themselves doing something. And I guess for my last comment here, if you really want to reach out and point your finger at somebody and say, hey, thanks a lot for making this happen, you can track down Steve Bullock and see where he's at. That's what started this whole thing, is this is the only thing we could do out in public, is be in our own cars, on a public street. So that's my last comment.
Yeah, I'll just, football game lasts 2 to 3 hours from Friday night. I hear it from my house. If cruise lasted for 2 hours, I don't think we'd be here, honestly. But I do, it's interesting, contrast this conversation about freedom with our recent conversations about the Warming Center. I'll just say that. But I think we should hear from the two members who are online to get their thoughts.
Ms. Carlson?
Thank you, Mr. President. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you.
So I agree with a lot that has been said already. Mr. Nunnally and Mr. Fisher and Mr. Dowd especially. I'm just wondering, as Ms. Gabriel said, could there be a cutoff on the time? I used to have a 68 Mercury Cougar that I would cruise up and down in St. Paul, Minnesota, and it was a fun time. We did it safely, and so I get why people do it. But if we could have perhaps a cutoff time, so it's not going on at midnight, I think that would be somewhat of a compromise. So I would vote not to pursue this as a permitted event or anything like that. I would agree with them. So thank you.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and open this item up for public comment. If you have comment, please approach the mic, state your name and your address, and you get one shot, especially when there's this many people in the room. So make sure you say what you're wanting to say
You're going to do a time.
and address the council.
Never done anything like this before. I'm typically not a public speaker, so I'm sorry. My name's Duke Brown. I live at 980 Frontage Road in Columbia Falls, Montana. It keeps being talked about like it's this huge organized event. It rarely is. I know there's a Cruise Kalispell Facebook page and everything else, but most every weekend that I go cruise, it's me and 4 or 5 of my friends either call, text, or in some group chat are like, hey, you gonna go cruise? No, my car's broke. Oh, I'm gonna go, my car's running. And then we go cruise. How do you permit that? I get it, it's loud, and it may disrupt certain people, but I don't recall ever going to a even reasonably large city where Main Street downtown on a Friday or Saturday night isn't loud, whether it's cars, bands at a bar, sporting events that happen around town. Towns and cities are loud on Friday and Saturday nights. I don't personally stay out till 1 o'clock in the morning because I'm in bed by 8 or 9 o'clock most of the time on the weekdays, but I just don't see how you could possibly enforce a cruising ban. I read this ahead of time and did some looking and talking to other people around the country and listening to other people that I know. I don't know of any place that has a cruising ban that's actually able to enforce it. How do you do it? You would have to have way more police presence to try and record all these license plates of cars that go by. Like, oh, there's a black Audi. I have a black Audi. Almost every one of my friends has a black Audi. You know, how do you enforce that? Are you going to use license plate cameras? You can't do that. It's illegal in Montana to use license plate recording cameras to enforce the law. I just don't. I think what's happening or what has happened, and I have a huge amount of respect for law enforcement, but I'm an idiot sometimes too. But the law enforcement presence has stepped up seriously towards the latter part of this year, and we kind of got the hint. And a lot of us have slowed down and calmed down, and we're not doing dangerous activities, which we probably didn't consider were dangerous in the first place. But still, the point is, what's already happening is working. People are still cruising. They're being a lot more safe about it. It seems ludicrous to try and pass unenforceable ordinances to try and control what people do with their cars. Just enforce the laws that are on the books. If you're driving recklessly, get a reckless driving ticket. If you're making noise and they can prove you did it, then they can enforce that. Honestly, if you passed an ordinance that said we couldn't cruise and you're going to give me a ticket for $50, I'm going to show up in court and demand a jury trial. Prove it. And I know dozens of other people in the community that would do the same thing. Like, just enforce the laws that are on the books, people will calm down. It's already working. That's all I have.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, my name is Teresa Narduzzi, and I live down on 2nd Avenue East, so I see this and hear this. It's not just Friday night. I don't have a problem with the cruising. It's every night, every day. They are flying down 11th, they hit Main Street, fly down 11th, loop around to Woodland, come back, and they have, there's one particular car that goes round and round, and they have the cutout muffler, which there is an ordinance that says that you cannot cut out your mufflers. I don't know how that works or how they make them louder, but there's multiple cars. They're the little little cars looking like out of, I don't know what. But it's not the guys that are cruising up and down Main Street. It's the ones that are branching off that are racing. They're not cruising, they're racing. And they're racing through the neighborhoods and they're racing fast. And if any law enforcement sat at between 10th and 11th at any time in the evening, they'd fly through the stop sign. They don't even stop there. And when they do have to stop there, they rev up the engine and fly down to Main Street. So, I don't think that they need to stop it either. I think that would be, like he said, a waste of resources. But something's got to change as far as the guys that are jacking up their cars. And it's 25-mile-an-hour zone. And that's across the country. You're in a neighborhood, it's 25 miles an hour. Why are these guys allowed, and they're adults, they're not kids, allowed to be flying through the neighborhoods and down Main Street? Why should there be a permit for them to go faster? It's 25 miles, that's it. It's the law, all over the place. So anyway, that's my bark. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
My name is Katie Larson. I live at 733 First Avenue East. I have lived in my home since 2017, so I was here prior to the COVID collection, and I believe wholeheartedly in the community and gathering. I think it's good. However, I live on the east side, and I have seen extremely inappropriate and unlawful activity. I have a 3 and a 7-year-old. They do not sleep at our house on Friday night because of the noise. We are not able to be in our neighborhood on Friday nights without listening to the noise from this event. And it's sanctioned in that there is a collective presence online supporting it. We should be encouraging safe communities. We should be encouraging multifaceted communities that uphold laws that believe in the safety of all citizens and that are not taking away my rights as a taxpayer to be in my yard and not listen to burnouts, teenagers, drinking, watching kids hanging out of vehicles. I've seen high-speed chases. I've watched motorcycles race each other up and down First Avenue in the wrong lane of traffic. So if you want to talk about rights, what about my rights as a property owner in this community? What about my rights to be a family member who wants to travel downtown on Friday night and, to Mr. Hunter's point, not breathe in carbon monoxide? I am all for the community gathering. This is ostracizing parts of your community. And I believe wholeheartedly that if this was happening in Miss Gabriel's neighborhood or in Silverbrook or in some other part of our county, it would have been stopped. But it is not, because it is associated with Main Street. And so to the young woman's comment about it being on our arterial streets, it is not just the impact on Main Street. It is the impact to the neighborhoods that surround the east and west sides of town. It is not fair that my children have to have noise canceling in their rooms. I really, really, really strongly encourage you guys to think about the fact that while it may be difficult to enforce, we should be setting a precedence for community gathering that includes everyone in our community, not just the people who have old cars or who want to drive up and down the streets. To your point, Mr. Hunter, a noise ordinance, how do you enforce it? That is your job as our elected officials to figure out how we are going to make sure that we are not listening to cars every single Friday night all year long until 1 or 2 in the morning. I want my children to be able to bike on First Avenue East on Friday night in the summer with friends in my yard. And I do not want their safety to be compromised because people have fast cars and they want to prove how fast they can be in our neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
My name is Brandon Huntley. I reside at 690 Bald Rock Road in Kalispell, Montana. To touch point on the two concerning, I see both sides here. I'm a local business owner in the valley and a highly avid car enthusiast. So I see 2 points here. I see they have the right to want to go out and enjoy the area as much as I go out and enjoy the area as well. There's laws in place that need to be enforced stronger and maybe reworked a little bit. As Mr. Russell said, the noise ordinance is a little loose, not really pinpointing anything, so maybe we should look at some laws that are in place that need to be stricter or governed a little bit better. But one thing that I heard also is our police presence, having it on Main Street is not a good resource, and we're using our resources not in the best way. But then you want to count cars driving by, which is going to take the same resources to govern the same thing that's happening right now. So I don't see how that potentially would work. I had a speech kind of put together to come here. And I think there's a bad egg in no matter what you do. You know, me going out and enjoying Cruise Kalispell with my family, to having, you know, someone almost hit me in my car or the pedestrians like some other people had, you know, that makes it look bad on my part. I'm just out enjoying, as I'm a fourth generation, resident here in the valley. And my grandparents cruised, my parents cruised, I met my wife cruising, and I'm going to take my kids cruising. So whether there's an ordinance or not, it's not going to stop me from going out and enjoying something that has been something for so long to Kalispell, Montana. The one thing that kind of touched base was the other ordinances in around the country, which I know a gentleman named Kyle Loflis. He's a big car enthusiast, and he has about 5 million followers on YouTube. So I reached out to him. He was from Omaha, Nebraska. And I asked him how his ordinance worked there. And he kind of quizzed me on what's happening here. And then he also schooled me on that the ordinance went into the 90s there, and they haven't actually been able to enforce it in over 15 years. Well, they still enjoy cruising and stuff. So with that, I'm just curious on, I totally agree, with someone that enjoys cruising. I'm at home 9:30, 10 o'clock at night to be at home with my family, putting them away. The ones that are out at 1 o'clock, they're the bad apples. I grew up around a bar down the street, and I heard revving, 20 years ago. So who's to say that's not some drunk down the street doing something that they shouldn't already do?
Hi, everybody. This is a really fun party. I'm so glad I came. My name is Alma Giovasis. I am a downtown business owner, a downtown resident. I own a really lame car that none of you would be impressed with. I'm not going to go there. I'm heavily involved with downtown, and I'd like to speak for a few of my fellow business owners. And you guys have mentioned wanting to hear how we feel, and I'm really hoping that we can help share that information with you. And I'm happy to talk with any of you further on this at any other date. Let's face it, owning a business on Main Street isn't always easy, and there are many, many temptations to move to other commercial hubs in Kalispell and around the valley. These business owners often place their community ahead of their wallets, and we are lucky to have them. They are fundamental to the Kalispell community. I've spent the last week talking to downtown businesses to get their take on the Friday night cruise. And just to clarify, this is the cruise that really started in 2020. I wasn't here when everyone's grandparents were cruising, and I don't know how to compare it, but it sounded fun. Here's what I learned. A few businesses that are not open on Friday nights seem less concerned. They're very interested to see how these discussions go, but obviously it doesn't really affect them. Many businesses do oppose the cruise, but they're really hesitant to speak out, fearing retaliation. It came up a lot. It really, really did. One of our business members have been threatened for speaking up against the cruise. Others report, unfortunately, financial impact, especially those that are open during the cruise hours. Here's a few stories from a couple of folks. A restaurant owner on Main Street, I said that during the summer, typically the busiest season, Friday nights, once they're most lively, have become the slowest of the week. This is a business that's worked tirelessly to keep serving our downtown. Yet like many others, they are facing rising costs, staffing challenges, and other obstacles. Now, one of their 2 weekend nights is their quietest. I love our downtown, but let's be honest. Our options for dining and entertainment are pretty limited. It's essential we support the restaurants that have invested their heart into making downtown Kalispell a vibrant place. Another retailer told me that Fridays used to be the time folks would come in and shop for their weekend supplies. It was a consistent revenue stream that they could count on. Their Friday night sales have plummeted, with regulars expressing anger over the cruise's hold on downtown. One business that I spoke with used to love hosting events on Friday nights, keeping their doors open to welcome in passersby. But with the increased noise and fumes, they've had to cancel their Friday night events for the foreseeable future. Many of our downtown businesses, as you've mentioned, rely on additional revenue because business on downtown in Main Street is not always great. So they might rely on revenue from renting out the rooms upstairs. You know where I'm going with that. Those aren't very popular. The folks from the cruise obviously need an outlet. They need an event. A lot of us do. And I get that, and I want that for them. But if they want to have it on Main Street, where there is a community that is very affected by this, a community that really cares about this downtown, then I would like to see them go through the same process the rest of us have to go through when we have events downtown. Whether that's however you want to figure that out. Sorry, guys, it's on you. Securing a written permission from city authorities, obtaining a permit, whatever. And working with the downtown community. Work with the businesses. They want people to gather. They want to see this, but it is having negative effects. And our businesses are struggling. This last summer was rough. And we're going to see a lot of doors shut, especially if they cannot see support from you. Thank you.
My name is Bridget Calabier. I live at 208 Gunsight Loop in Kalispell, and I'm the general manager at the Kalispell Grand Hotel. I'm a little nervous. I've never done this before. I can tell you that over this year, our guests have left more negative reviews because of the noise and the disturbances. That is not just on a Friday, but every single day. I work 60 to 70 hours a week at that building, and it's all day long, all night long. And the guests that are impacted by it are coming here for comfort and relaxation, and that's being taken from them, especially if they can't get a good night's sleep. I understand you guys are looking for a way to keep it going because of what it originally started for, create money and give people laughter and togetherness, and a lot of people have taken advantage of that and just gone crazy with it. The ideas that I've heard that could help tighten up on it, I don't think they're going to be realistic long term. Picking a specific day or specific time frames, everybody's going to do it if they want to. It doesn't matter what you try to put in place. But maybe speed bumps, because it's not just on Main Street. It's not just people that are almost getting hit. And I know they're not ideal, but neither are a lot of the roundabouts that are getting put in place. But the speed bumps might help make it a little bit better in the long run and on multiple streets, not just Main Street. It's the only thing we can think of. If we lose our guests that come every year, some of them have been coming 10, 20 years, we're going to lose our business as well, and we're going to have employees that have been there for 2 or 3 years, which you don't see that much anymore. They're going to lose their jobs because we're not going to have the money coming in to support them. So whatever you guys need, I'm willing to help as well if you guys needed to, and just our thoughts.
Thank you, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Terry Solomon, and I live at 719 First Avenue East, down near the courthouse. And I came tonight because our quality of life has been severely impacted by this. We do not have people over on Friday nights. My husband and I used to go downtown. We had a standing date, trying to keep that marriage going, on Friday nights at a restaurant on Main Street. And when summer came, we gave it up. Now, we're only one person. But when we have asked friends who don't live right in town to join us on a Friday night, they won't come. There are people racing up and down First Avenue East until at least 11 o'clock. And when we have been, we haven't been downtown on a Friday night in a long time because it feels very unpleasant. And I understand that the police department is short-staffed and can't be everywhere, but we've also watched drivers with open cans of beer doing burnouts and then running a red light while a police officer stands on the corner and watches. And I don't understand how, if that is observed by a police officer, why that driver should not be ticketed. Under any other circumstances, I think he would be. But cruise night seems to be a pass for a lot of behavior that would not be tolerated at other times. obviously, given my druthers, forgive me, but I would do away with cruise night, just for my personal interest, because it's so disruptive to my life. But that's not what I would want to do if I was sitting up there. Some of the suggestions that came up tonight, I thought were really worth exploring. I think that if you had a cruise night, maybe every other Friday night, and it was sanctioned for the first and the third Friday, pick your Fridays, from 7 to 9, and that was truly enforced, I think that would become a more special event. I think businesses downtown could work around it because they would know when was cruise night, when's not cruise night. I understand there's a problem because there's no organization that runs this. But that would depend on the goodwill of the people who really want to continue cruise and have it be special. And so I would ask that if the council is willing to make a request, a recommendation, I understand the problems with legislating what should happen, that the people who really like cruise night would work with the council and try to make something happen where everybody's interests are served. I would like to be able to have a cookout in my backyard on a Friday night in the summer. I'd like to be able to go to sleep at 10 o'clock and not hear squealing wheels outside my window. So I'm just here because I feel like a minority, but I really appreciate some of the suggestions that some of you made. I have to add, though, at the beginning of this meeting, I was quite taken aback by council members who entered the meeting and the first thing they said was that they had already made up their mind. That does not give me faith in the council. I would like to think that as council members, you would reserve judgment until you hear varying points of view. I came in here thinking one way, and after listening to all of you, I changed some of my opinions. And I would ask that you reserve judgment until you hear the opinions of the public as well. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Hello, my name is Peg Hostler Hayes. I would like to first off say thank you to Councilman Sid, Jed, Chad, and Sam, and the lady up there for being and understanding us cruisers. We are not all bad apples. 99% of us are good people. That being said, let's follow the rules. My name is Peg Hostler Hayes. I've lived at 442 Addison Square for 25 years. Yes, I'm one of those evergreen people. I have, but that's okay. We love you anyways. We like our taxes more than yours. I'm also a local business owner and have been for 20 years. I, like many of us here, have enjoyed cruising Main Street, Kalispell. I imagine some of us here have cruised the streets of Kalispell since the 50s or earlier. It started back up big time in 2020 when the government tried to take our rights and freedom away, much the way some of the City Council of Kalispell is trying to do now. Through my job, I have talked to many policemen about their feelings toward cruising. For the most part, they don't like the burnouts and wish it wouldn't go past 10 p.m. But other than that, they are okay with cruising. They also state there aren't enough policemen to watch it as they are busy with the real crime in town. The complaints have come from out-of-towners who are here on vacation or only live here part-time. But not all people on vacation have objected. Some actually say it brings back fond memories watching all the cool old cars. Some people state on the internet that people were drag racing 80 miles per hour down Main Street. For that, I say I highly doubt that most of the time. As when I went cruising, it was bumper to bumper cars, and there was no way you were going to do 80 miles per hour. Do some people feel the need to do burnouts? Yes. That needs to be stopped as it's rough on the streets. Monty of Cruise Kalispell has asked for that to be stopped on more than one occasion. The cruises do a lot of good too. Several of them have been in loving memory of a lifelong resident, such as Howie Spain. And may I suggest that when it is in the honor of somebody, that's when you have a ton more cars than maybe other Friday nights. In closing, just because there are a few bad apples, please don't let it ruin it for the rest of us. Perhaps put limits like no burnouts and cruising stops by 10 p.m. As is now, most people stop cruising by then anyways. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
My name is Bruce Guthrie. I live on the 1600 block of Fifth Avenue East. And frankly, when I read in the paper today that there was talk of a well spelled out ordinances being considered to address the issues of the cruise, I was rather shocked because I thought what really needs to be addressed was what for several years now has been a lack of enforcement of our laws. And I think it's been let go of. And I know there's only 5 police officers in a town of 25,000. That's 1 police officer per 5,000 residents to enforce the law, which is ridiculous. But in another way, maybe it's not. Because your job as the city council, fundamentally, is to protect our rights. Everything we do is an extension of that primary directive, to protect our rights. But what do we do when there's a diversity of rights? People who want to meet payroll, who are running businesses on Main Street and who are affected. We can't tell them that their concerns aren't real because they are, and they're telling us that. People who want to express the joy of this vehicle that they've put a lot of time and money and pride in and want to show it, to other people. They have the right to do that too, but people have the right to be able to put their kids to bed, and people have the right to socialize openly. So your job is to figure out how we all do that, but you can't do that unless we are neighborly with each other. That's the only thing that makes this work. That's the only thing that 5 police officers can do their job on a Friday night, is if we are neighborly with each other every day, all the time. What does it mean to be a good neighbor? I think we all know that. I think we can all look at things we do and ask ourselves in retrospect, was I being a good neighbor? Was that neighborly of me? And I just think it's important for people to ask that question. And for a few more police officers to be there on Friday and to address the issue of those people who aren't being neighborly with the noise, with the speed, with the rolling coal. I live on Fifth Avenue. I like to walk across 93 down there at 18th to go to the 406 taco night, but I quit doing it after a couple of times because I don't know how fast people were going. I'm not trained to visually spot how fast people are going, but they weren't going 35 from the courthouse to 18th Street, and it's not okay. And I think one well-placed police officer with a radar gun could put a stop to that, and I think a lot of lateral pressure on the folks who enjoy the cruise to be neighborly in their behavior could help that a lot too. I'm sad to see it's come this far to this point and has been let go this long that we have to be having this meeting, but here we are. And I think it's incumbent upon us to do our part as citizens to be neighborly, and for you to do your part as to engage those issues where people are raising their rights being violated. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, Council, Chief, and Mr. Russell. My name is William McGuire. I'm a Columbia Falls resident over off Trapp Road. I grew up in this valley, was born and raised, been part of the cruise scene been all over the country, major car clubs and such. And, you know, I'm part of the old 3rd and Main group that got banned back in 2008. And what happens is and this is the part that everybody's kind of tiptoeing around and it's an elephant, is everybody wants more enforcement, whether it's by permit or law enforcement using resources. Why can't we go back to civil servants like, you know, Dave Thomason? They got fired because he'd stop and he'd interact with the kids on 3rd and Main Street. He would interact with them, have conversations with them, be a part of their life and leadership. And it's amazing when he came on to payroll for your agency, Chief, years ago, he came on as ex-LAPD officer, drug interdiction. And I've got friends that are in law enforcement in other parts of the country as well. And Kalispell PD used to be so interactive with the kids, the adults, the community, and so much has happened over the years, whether political or, you know, people not raising their kids with respect for law enforcement, that they don't feel like they can really have that kind of relationship with their community anymore. And it really comes down to that. You know, I apologize to the people that get to hear our cars every night. Every day, I have to drive through Kalispell to go to work south of Kalispell. And I have to take the long way around because stop and go traffic even during the day. So people need to sleep. 10 o'clock, cut it off. I mean, that's, you know, maybe that should be our limit to cruising. I'm another one of those guys that's home by 10 o'clock and going to bed. But we got to find a way, as the last guy said, you know, that we need to be neighborly with each other, you know, and if we're gonna really try to save on our budgeting and resources, the 5 officers that are out there, how come they can't stop and have conversations with people for 5 minutes at a time? I don't see it anymore. That makes a huge impact with the kids, with the adults, that interaction. You know, car clubs across the world, they do the Blue Lives Matter movement. They raise money for kids. You know, 3 of the car clubs that I know of here in the Valley alone are currently raising money for the camp for diabetes down in South Montana. You know, there's 2%, 2 to 5% in every car community. There's those bad apples that just completely kill it for the rest of us. I see it. I say something to them. I've booted people out of clubs before. But it really comes down to everybody being able to work together. You know, businesses on Main Street, let's involve them in our cruises. Let's, you know, come together as a community, and it can start from the top down. It can start with you guys and work its way down, you know, and I get it. You know, there's a lot of things that happen nowadays that the law enforcement really has to be protective of themselves, and I don't blame them. But if we can just take 5 minutes from them to have conversations with these kids that used to stand out on 3rd and Main or, you know, the church parking lot, it would make a huge difference and a huge impact. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening. Thank you. My name is Alicia Glenn, and I live over on 7th Avenue East. I plan just to come and observe. I came tonight, and as I'm listening, there are things that are just perplexing to me. I will say that I really like a lot of what has been said about the importance of being able to work together and being able to be respectful. I want to advocate for a group that I think is not being even recognized. I'm just an old girl with a mob of children. I have 8 children. I lost my husband 11 years ago when I was pregnant with my youngest. I used to have a farm and horses. My older children had horses and chickens and ponies. My younger children live in this community here in this area. They don't have ponies. That's not fair. Life is not fair. Some people are not happy with the noise of a car, and cars are not their interest. Some people, horses aren't their interest. We all have different interests. But when we talk about things like needing a permit to do something that is just a spontaneous event, then we're saying, oh, you need to ask governmental permission. we're kind of drowning as a country in needing to get permission to do basics. And as a mom with a lot of children and a mom who works with a lot of teens, I think that something that is being overlooked is the amount of young people. Tonight, my son, one of the other things I guess I wanted to say that really stood out to me was one of the business owners who was talking about the hotel and that it wasn't just Fridays, it's all day and every day. Then we're not talking about cruise night. And also, it is disappointing about some of the businesses, but I see people come with lawn chairs and sit and eat ice cream and watch the cars. So businesses are profiting, they have to be, but lots of people can't afford a $30 steak night on a Friday. So maybe, just maybe, some of those businesses are not thriving in the last couple of years, not because of Friday night cruise night, which seems to also be happening Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday, according to some of the people who spoke tonight and stated that it was all the time. So if that's the case, then it's not cruise night that is the main dilemma here. But my son, who is 17, spent the last year and a half saving for a truck. He bought a 1970 Chevy truck. He is thrilled over this truck. Tonight, a young woman did not drive appropriately, took a turn that was not hers to take, slammed into his truck. He has a concussion. He's at home. His truck just got towed away. He loves cruise night. My children walk to cruise night. I work a lot because I'm an independent mom with a lot of children, so I don't get to participate a lot. But if I can, I do, and it's great. But you have a lot of young people who are here, and they're here because they don't want to organize anything. They want to get off work, connect with their friends, and go downtown. My 17-year-old's not going to figure out how to ask your permission, not because he's not respectful. He's extremely respectful. I raise my children to be that way, and I know that there are a lot of youth who don't have the homes that maybe we grew up in or that we wish they did. But I would rather see all of these teens who want to show off their vehicles that they're working hard for, that they're putting time and energy into. I'd rather see them listening to their loud music, driving down the street. And I like to be in bed at 9:30 too, because I work 6-7 days a week sometimes. But I can get over it because that's life, because they deserve to get to be young. And I, as a mom, I do understand that people want to barbecue in their yard on a Friday. And that's really sad if your friends aren't going to come to your house because there's a cruise night downtown. And this isn't anywhere USA. This is Montana, USA. So the fact that people are coming to our downtown and upset that on a Friday night for a handful of hours, maybe it is too late. I hear it. I hear it when I go to bed. It is still going on. My window's open. But I get over it. I wake up to it. I'm not going to say I don't. I do. But I am also thankful that children are taking an interest in cars, not drugs, not alcohol. We see so much destruction from drugs and alcohol. Can we give some of these young people who are here a break and realize this isn't an organized event? It is a group of people who get together when they can to have a good time downtown, their downtown, not just the vacationers downtown, but ours, with each other and their friends. So to need to ask permission and to pay for that permit to do something that they've already worked really hard to do that. I make my children pay for their own cell phones and their own car insurance, then they're ready to do it. That's how I do it in my house. I don't know how everybody else does it. We all have to make those decisions. But there are a lot of young people who are good kids, and they just want to go have fun on a Friday and check out their friends' cars. If you don't like exhaust fumes, that's not the place for you. Like, plug in your electric car and keep on cruising. I like my vintage motorcycles. I've got a couple of them, and I will cruise downtown if I can. My car's not impressive either. But I am sorry for people that don't have a nice car, don't have a cool motorcycle, or not into it. But I don't think it's one more thing that we need to put on our community to say, you now need to ask our permission to do something that is so basic and so American and so fundamental, and all you're going to do is push kids to go find someplace else to do it, and it's not going to be where it will draw something that's positive. And I think that our young people need to be advocated a little better for this by council members, so that they know that their voice matters, even though they might not be in a position to figure out how to hit those marks that everybody that is all of us, adults saying, well, we don't like it. Here's why we don't like it. And here's how we should fix it, fund it, organize it, get a permit for it. Maybe they're not in a position to do that. So I just would like to see the council just acknowledge that most of the people who participate, there's people of all ages, obviously, but most of the people who are participating are young adults who are just starting out. And I would like to see us set a better example to them for this. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Hello, my name is Corey Ferris. I'm 206 Granford Trail, which is pretty far out. It's Kalispell address, but it's might as well be Crescent. But I did live on 7th Avenue West here in town, so I've got both perspectives. Obviously, supporting my club. I'm part of the Fun Seekers Corvette Club. We do a lot of things and that support our veterans in the community. We're in parades. And as a lot of people would know, Corvette's usually owned by older people. And one of the hardest things to do is to involve the younger generation. And I was blessed to get my Corvette from my dad. So he didn't die, but it was a plan since he got it when I was this tall. I've been washing that car since I was 8 years old. And so when I was 30, it was our plan that when I was 30, I would get it to 76, and he got a newer one that's more comfortable for his age. I came in here, unfortunately, my biggest sin is that I was not born in Montana. I went to college here and fell in love with it, and after my hometown died of death by council, that my hometown is a lot like Kalispell is, but 20 years ago, and now it's not the same town. Death by council, death by rules, death by ordinances. My historic downtown is trying to become more urbanized. They literally had city council meetings like this that were about how to become more like downtown Seattle when we were hours away from it. So, short of being negative, I thought the best thing to do is to explain why I think the cruise is one of the coolest things about Kalispell. And one of the reasons why me and some of my friends my age only come into downtown Kalispell, since we live in the woods, we only come to downtown Kalispell for cruising Kalispell, and that takes us to the breweries, for dinners, for shopping. Like, we are on a tight budget, my age of friends. And it's hard to keep old cars running, but we love to. And what we love is this town too. We love to come into town and walk around and go to all the stores and whatever, but like we can't afford to do that very often. So cruising Kalispell is our way of being part of the community, being seen, seeing others. I've talked to just random people. We park in parking lots and we talk to each other. There's one of the coolest things I love about it is you'll be driving down Main Street and there are kids and parents and everybody, old, young, poor, rich, they're all either in their cars or they're on the side of the road watching. And there's that little kid raising his hand like so excited about your car going by. And I'm like, my car's not that nice, but this little kid loves it. And that makes me happy. That little kid wants me to rev it up. Sorry, I'll do a little rev. It's a stock Chevy 350. It is not loud. It squeals. The belts squeal. Like, that kid loves it. And then his parents. And all I'm thinking is, that family, they came into town to see this. What are the chances none of them go into a restaurant? None of them go into a shop. None of them came into town to shop. So, like, from your perspectives, I would be shocked, and I am shocked if businesses aren't doing better when this economy is so bad. I'm eating eggs and onions and potatoes for most of my meals, but I'll fill up. I get excited in the summer when me and my friends, we all go, you're gonna drive your classic car to work on Friday and then meet in town and cruise? Yeah, I'll spend my extra money to fill up the car with premium, and it sucks looking at that bill. But we'll go downtown and we'll cruise for a couple hours, and we're just like the others, where we might be out till 10, but I'm past my bedtime right now. I do, one of the things I did love was when one of the promoters reached out on Facebook and said, hey, calm it down. And what did I see? I also saw the police be more present. But what did I see? It didn't get shut down. Where I lived, things got shut down. I lost my dream job to shutdowns. I lost my life to shutdowns. And here, I love that the community came together and said, all right, we'll calm it down a little bit. And there are bad apples. And I will say, our car people, we hate those bad apples. I used to race my car, but guess what? I got in trouble. And then I learned a lesson. And I don't know how many tickets I had, but I grew up in trouble a lot as a kid. But what did I learn? I learned from those getting in trouble. You don't get to just get away with it. Like, I learned lessons. I had really good mentors in my life too. And that's what I see when these communities gather in those parking lots and they're talking to each other. Hey man, what's up with your car? I had a kid who I couldn't believe he owned a C3 Corvette. And I talked to him and he was like, man, I'm trying to get parts for it or whatever. I was like, dude, keep going. Like, if you need community, us fun seekers will take you in. Like, so one of the things we're doing too as fun seekers is we're trying to get banners for our Corvettes that say we're fun seekers. So if the cops, because one of our members is a volunteer for the sheriff's posse, and we have connections because we are tied to the community, and we get asked, hey, is that, I will just say, insert color, Corvette, year, screaming up and down the road. Nope, not one of us. And we'll throw them under the bus if we have to, because we don't want to be associated with that. And most car people don't. They don't want to be associated with the guys ripping up and down the road, because I love my car. And there have been people, I will say, there have been people going way too fast downtown. I'm there to cruise. I'll personally say I love the burnouts as long as they're sitting still. But should they get in trouble? Yeah. Like, okay, give them a ticket. Like, if they're not, like, what are we going to say? You can't shut it all down. But I think more of our community wants to be involved in making it better and nip out the bad apples than we want to, like, come in here and yell at you. Like, we don't want to come in here and yell at you saying, actually, I was pretty heated. So I will say, I'm glad that I heard a lot more positive voices from you guys, and that this isn't like the path that a lot of the people outside probably thought on Facebook how this is going to go. So I think instead of adding laws, reach out to the community. Let's plan things that help the downtown businesses. Like, if you said, hey, let's shop at this place or let's do that, like, we can build something together that makes it better. I would even think it would be a blast. Logistically, it would suck, but it would be a blast if we got all the classic cars at the beginning of spring, after winter wrecks the roads, come in and say, hey, help us paint the lines. I think a lot of us would walk into the brewery, have a beer, and then go paint a line. We'd go get dinner, and we'd paint a line. Like, yeah. Trust me, I'm saying there's more. That you have a resource. All those cars going up and down the road, those are resources. Those aren't your enemy. Those are resources to help the community. And I would love to see these cars who are being extremely reckless actually get the book thrown at them, because I've had the book thrown at me and I've learned my lessons, and I'm not doing that anymore. And I would, because I don't want my car getting wrecked either. That lady's truck or son's truck, that is heartbreaking. If I lost my Corvette because of that, I would be so upset. So I would say, let's nip the apples, not the whole orchard. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, sir. And I guess I would just go through and say, we got a lot of people that are wanting to speak and everything. So say what you're wanting to say it, and then just try to keep it pithy. We've got a lot of people that are wanting to talk too, but go ahead.
Hi, my name is Gavin. I'm here, I live down in Lakeside, but I kind of want to represent the younger part of the group that does this. I'm 19, and I've cruised since it was a thing, since I got my driver's license in 2021, and it's one of the best things that we get to do throughout the summertime. It's not a year-long thing, I don't think, and I've heard some people say everybody hears it throughout the year. Me personally, it's something that we do through the summertime, and so I see both sides of it. I see the impact that it has on the businesses and the people that do live here, but at the same time, from a younger person's perspective, it's not easy being a kid in a generation like it is now. It's a lot different than it was when, not calling anybody old, but some of the other people's generations were. But it's a lot harder. There's a lot fewer things that we get to enjoy and do, and there are a lot of bad influence in the world, like alcohol and drugs, and there are some kids, and personally my friends, that choose to do certain things like that, and I don't agree with that. I think it's a horrible thing to do, and I think that's something something that needs to be taken care of and looked at even a little bit more than we do. And so I think this is a great way to let kids like myself have fun. I don't personally drive anything fancy. I just drive an obnoxious pickup because I have a Sawzall and I cut this muffler off because it was cool. But for the people that do have the money and get to have the cool cars and we get to go out and see them and stuff like that, like that's what makes it cool. And being able to go out as friends on a Friday night and do something that's not frowned upon and not bad for our bodies and is enjoyable to be with people and just have a good night. I think that it doesn't need to go till 1 o'clock in the morning. That I personally am not one of those people. I go home at a reasonable time because I have to work and it's not fun, but whatever. So I think that there could be something done for it, but the legislation that's been put forward, I don't think is a good way to do it. And like's been pointing out, there's going to be people that go around it. Your mom tells you not to do stuff, but you still go and do it. I can personally vouch for that. Like, just because there's rules put in place doesn't mean you're going to completely stop it. We should go after the people that are the problem and not the brunt majority of us that are just doing it for the fun of doing it. So thank you guys.
Thank you, sir.
Hello, my name is Jandy Cox, and I own Rocky Mountain Outfitter, 135 Main Street. I've heard a lot of really great ideas tonight, and I think that I also kind of came maybe with a bit of a chip on my shoulder, and I've really learned a lot, that a lot of people really are super respectful about what they want to do on a Friday night with their cars and really enjoy it a lot. And I can appreciate that. I can also say that I've been on Main Street in Kalispell for 35 years as a merchant. And since 2020, the decibel level on Main Street has gone from pretty non-existent to absolutely out of control. And sadly, I think that that's been put on Cruise Kalispell because that was sort of the impetus for it. So noise, dangerous behavior, unlawful behavior, reckless driving, burnouts. Everybody in this room that's been down on a Friday night has seen those behaviors. I guarantee it. I've witnessed near misses on Main Street. I've witnessed drag racing south of town, south of the courthouse. I've witnessed it on First Ave. I've witnessed it on other streets around Kalispell. And it's been unprecedented, the increase after Cruise Kalispell started. So again, there's only a few bad apples that do that. And I would encourage the Cruise Kalispell members to communicate. We're all here, we're all neighbors, we all want what's best for our community. And nobody wants ordinances telling them what to do. I certainly don't. I'm not really encouraging that, but I'm encouraging enforcement of our laws. We've got the laws already in place. It's really clear that everybody in this room agrees that enforcement of the laws, and some of that is enforcement of encouraging your other Cruise Kalispell mates to do the right thing, right? Don't have vehicles that have been altered illegally to make extra noise. Don't have vehicles that spew, roll coal. Don't have vehicles that are, racing on Main Street. If you want to race your cars, we could do it at the community college. We could maybe, do it at the city airport. Like, there's places that, have there not been car racing at the community college before? I've been here for 35 years. You're nodding yes, and I know there has been. And I know that you could do that if you wanted to. So if that's something you want, create a way to do it. If you want to be unlawful and drive around, Kalispell at all hours of the night, you should get ticketed. And I would wholeheartedly say that I am one merchant on Main Street. Every merchant on Main Street that I've spoken to has lost business. We used to be open on Friday night. We're not open on Friday night. We had a ladies' night in May, downtown Kalispell ladies' night on a Friday night. It was laughable. Women were walking into the store with their fingers in their ears because it was it's just disrespectful. There's no question that there's a lot of behaviors that are disrespectful, rude, inconsiderate. And I'm sure that it's nobody in this room because I've heard a lot of really thoughtful ideas. And I would encourage you guys to figure out a way for business to be able to operate on a Friday night. I'd encourage the crew, and again, cruising has been going on far longer than 2020. And the Hardee's to Rose Hours Loop is well known. It's not a new thing, but it's not the way it's done now. It's not been so loud. It's not been, sure, people were burning out from time to time, but now it's every Friday night, many, many times. So that's all I have to say. Thank you, guys. Good luck.
Thank you.
I'm a little shorter than everybody else. My name is Jody Cross. I live at 755 Helena Flats Road. I am one of the initial people that pushed Cruise Kalispell. So I'm not an organizer, but I had photographers out there. I have hundreds of thousands of photos of everybody's vehicles that are here. First, let me tell you that what you've got going on is not a Cruise Kalispell issue, okay? The last cruise this year that was called, I believe, was in May. Everything else is usually an event, which is down at Conlon's or something like that, okay? But the actual call to cruise on Maine only happens about 4 times a year. So, little backstory, Cruise Kalispell was created in 2020 because we had such a community that was divided because of everything that was going on, and we had so much going on with suicide, especially kids, being locked up at home and separated from friends, family. That's the reason Cruise Kalispell started. Not only that, we had a lot of mom and pop shops that were shutting down because they didn't have an income, and they needed the income. So originally when it was set up, if you were a mom and pop bakery or a mom and pop sandwich, you could literally go on Cruise Kalispell's page, you could order your sandwich, you could pay online and drive by, stick your hand out and grab your bag and go. There are several shops or several stores that are thankful because of what Cruise Kalispell did. Now, since 2020, and of course now we're around each other, events are set up to raise money for certain nonprofits. I know that Monty and Jeremy, who are the ones who created Cruise Kalispell, are huge into our veterans. So they've raised money for the Veterans Pantry. I think it's Kitty Moms, something like that. So every time they do an organized cruise, they're raising money for nonprofits that is so needed right now. Okay? But the other thing too is I think we have a driving issue. We have an intelligence issue. So first of all, to some of my community members, pull your heads out of your asses. Time to drive like humans. That's the first one. If we're going to get together, it was said this year for our parade, what is Montana's best? Aren't we the best in Montana? We're the best asset Montana has. So let's start acting like it. It's about frickin' time we grow up. And anybody who is over 30 years old who lost cruising years ago, that was our life. That's what we did. Now, how many of us are productive, working in jobs, not doing drugs, not drinking? We're living a great life. We're trying to teach that to our kids. So now you have children here, kids, 19, 18, 16-year-olds. I know 16-year-olds that cruise. They're not out doing drugs. They're not drinking. They're studying in school. They're learning how to fix a vehicle that is an old beat up vehicle that they bought off Facebook for $500, but they're excited because it's a 1960 whatever. Okay? We're giving our kids hope by allowing them to work on their vehicles because they want to show it off on Main Street. My thing is I think we have an education issue. If you follow this all the way down, your muscle car drivers that are driving the really expensive muscle cars, those guys are heading home at 8 o'clock at night. They're not on Main Street. The ones you're seeing are the kids. And if you look at driver's ed and how many kids actually go through driver's ed, you'd be astounded to know that so few of our kids get the opportunity to go through driver's ed and learn safety rules on the road because they can't afford $350 to go through driver's ed. Whatever happened to when we were kids, it was required to go through school. You got a half a credit for the class, you got a half a credit for drive time. Whatever happened to that? So let's put some time into our kids. And as far as our police officers, I love you guys to death. Thank you so much for everything you do. I am a huge supporter. My daughter is a police officer. You want to know why these guys can't go out and shake hands? Because if you knew half the shit they went through at night, it would scare you. It would scare you to think of what's going on in our world. So if we find safe things for our kids to do, like cruising, although, like I said, as adults, let's teach our kids how to drive safely, and let's not teach them to do the stupid burnouts on Main Street, not to throw water on the ground and encourage the burnouts. I've been there. I actually stopped cruising this year because there is so many burnouts. I was a huge pusher of it in the beginning, and I still love it. I still think it's a great thing to do. It's gotten out of hand. Ordinances aren't going to take care of the problem, and shutting it down is not going to take care of the problem. Getting more police officers, who's going to come up with the money? And as far as a drag strip for everybody to go drag racing, start a GoFundMe, somebody. I'll donate to it. Let's do it. You could put it outside of town. I mean, if we're going to do this as a community, then let's pull together as a community and do it. 100%. But don't blame council. This isn't your guys' problem. You have more important things to deal with. And as far as our police go, let's have some frickin' respect. These guys put their life on the line every damn day, and we're going to make them follow us on Main Street because we can't be adult enough to just drive? Seriously? And Ryan, this has absolutely no comparison to what's going on with the warming center at all. And Jed, as far as sending it to Evergreen, you and I need to talk. So, there you go. Thank you, guys.
Hi, my name is Kagan Rutz. I live just down the street, 1125 First Avenue East. So I guess I have noticed an impact from this cruise. It's been quite loud, quite disruptive, and I guess I love cars. I'm a business owner here, not on Main Street, but I have probably 12, 14, half of them are heavy duty diesel trucks. So I'm not I don't cruise though. I've kind of had enough at the end of the week. I just want to come home and relax. But I guess I don't have a problem with it per se. It's just the noise. It's the noise and it's the bad apples. It sounds like most people in here, I don't have a problem. So to me, it seems like we've got to enforce what we've got. I mean, we need to find a way to get some more police officers, it sounds to me. We got to do it. Sometimes it's not enough to just stand up and say we can't afford it. Sounds like we can't afford not to me. If we're going to come to some accord and some compromise with allowing this to happen, and I personally don't care how many trips people make, as long as they're being respectful and they're not unduly being excessively loud. That's just my background is in civil engineering. We do a lot of work on City of Kalispell public works jobs. So as far as I know, the construction hours are 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And that's why? For noise, annoyance, dust. So, I don't know. It sounds like the things that have been brought up, any ordinance you come up with is going to be very difficult to police. I don't know what the solution is. Certainly doing some collaboration with the crews. Sounds like it's loosely organized, but really it's people that may not have any part of that. They may just show up. So I think we've got to find a way to get some more police officers and enforce the existing laws. So anyway, it's the noise. I just wanted to be on record stating it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I know it's late, so I'll be brief. My name is Sean Jepson. I'm from Lakeside. And I'll tell you that whenever the bypass was completed, 2016, 2017, I probably came to downtown Kalispell maybe 5, 7 times after the bypass was completed. But since this cruise started, I'm up here almost every Friday night, or at least somebody in my family is. And in preparation for this meeting, I looked at a list of all the restaurants. I've eaten at every restaurant on Main Street at least twice in the last year. And if you go out a couple of blocks, I found 2 that I haven't eaten at. So now they're on my list for next year as long as there's still a cruise. So there are people who come, like I look at Kalispell fondly now. I had forgotten how nice the downtown was because I stopped coming. I do everything up in Hutton Ranch, and with the bypass, I didn't need to come anymore. So all of the businesses that were mentioned tonight, except for Kalispell Grand, I have supported on a Friday night. I don't even remember the last time I was up here on a Monday night, but on a Friday night, I'm in downtown Kalispell, and it's because of the cruise. And like the young man said, and like the woman said earlier, when my kids tell me they're coming to a cruise on a Friday night, I'm not worried about them. If they're going somewhere else, then I want to know who they're hanging out with, what they're doing, what's going on. But if I know they're coming to downtown Kalispell, I'm not worried about it. So thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Well, I'm from Georgia. I don't know if you can tell, but but my name's Kyron, and I lived up here for 4 years and been down in Georgia and did some things down there and came back because it's amazing. But I drive a big truck. It's loud. I cut it off. I mean, you gotta do what you gotta do. But down south, I tried doing what we do here. It don't fly down there. I got my license suspended and all that, and I wasn't really doing much other than being loud. But what we got going on is great. Since I moved back, all my buddies are either off at college and doing their thing, and I'm here working. So I had no friends. And then I met all my friends that I now hang out on the daily, and they're good dudes, hard work, and I go hunting with them, and I just helped one of them pack out a bear today. So they're good kids. They got their head on straight for the most part, and I got in a wreck a few months back, flipped it, not during the cruise, over there on Kyla Drive, just thin roads, and flipped her over. Now I'm working a spink. Thousands of dollars trying to get a truck up and going so I could go and take it on a cruise again. Because I remember when I had my 7.3 going down Main, and there's kids cheering me on the side of the road, and it was an IDI, so it wasn't very fast, but it dumped. So the kids loved it, and I loved it, and I love seeing the kids on the side of the road just cheering me on. And down south, it's not really that big of a thing, and I could tell from the people here. The way the kids act here and the way the kids act down there, there's a big difference. There's a higher respect for people that sit and take the time to build their trucks. And the ratio of daddy's money to I've worked for this is way better. And I respect it. I respect most of the guys I run into on the cruises. And most of them are just a good handful of guys. And, there's some girls in there too, which is crazy, but, you got everyone in there having a good time, and I mean there is definitely some excessive, like the burnouts. I can agree that's a little bit dangerous, and things can go sideways really fast. But as it is, just a bunch of good teenagers hanging out. Like you can't get better than that. especially like you hear the stories of your dad's told you. You're like, oh yeah, I go out with my buddies and we gonna meet up somewhere and we all goof off and cops didn't care. It was like this little place for the teenagers to hang out. You ain't got that. Like we try to go back roads, and that's even more dangerous. I live up Patrick Creek Road. I've heard some horror stories of people going off the roads up there and trying to find a place. There's a gravel pit up there. They go hang out with some not good things there. But when it was a good spot, they're trying to do their best, and stuff goes wrong. You can't stop it. But I'd much rather have it in a place where it's public, where there's people like we can do this and come together and try to figure this out. Because when it's on a dirt road, back roads, you got your buddies to pull you out at that point, right? So it's not talked about much, and it's way more dangerous. And there's a couple people that's lost their lives on the dirt roads. So I'd much rather have it in a public spot where there's people's eyes that can help guide the stupider few to get their head on straight. But yeah, y'all have a good one.
Thank you, sir.
Sorry, I have social anxiety. I'm kind of a hermit. My name is Kayla Rainsanter. I live off Kelly Road. I'd rather not give my address out. Yeah. I'm a hot rodder. I own several cars. Sadly, my car's not very loud. You probably can hardly hear it when it's driving down Main Street. When I cruise down Main Street, I make it a point to stop and support a business. But now, to me, it sounds like the businesses are more focused on the out-of-staters than the ones that live here. And then maybe that's just, I'm taking it on wrong. I don't know. But that's what I've been seeing. And now I'm seeing an event that brings kids together, community together, the freedoms being taken away. And permits want to be in place, which to me sounds like a money grab, to be honest. And you could put as many permit signs as you want, but the ones that keep breaking the law will continue to keep breaking the law. And the ones that respect the police and want to support the small businesses will move on somewhere else and spend their money somewhere else. And I don't know how we would come together as a community to help stop it. I would love to. If you guys have any ideas, I went to a car show this summer, helped support, raise money for the cops. Maybe we could do it again. I would love to do that. And I really don't want my rights to be infringed on. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Any further public comment? Okay.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. My name is Nate Prince. I live off Old Reserve Drive. Just real quick, because I know we're at the end, but I grew up here in Kalispell, and when I was 16, I got pulled over on Main Street because I didn't have any mufflers, and I was doing a burnout, and got a ticket. And that next week, I put mufflers on my truck, and I learned my lesson of burnouts in the middle of town. So I guess I don't want to see any more government overreach, especially here in Kalispell. And, this is this ordinance under the guise of public safety threatens to end cherished local tradition, cruising Main Street. And this isn't just about traffic, it's about community and heritage. And so I want to thank the local police officers, and I think that we should focus on enforcing effective laws. So I guess this is a naturally evolving thing that has sprung up by the people. And this isn't something that we can try to stuff down and go backwards in time. So I think it would be more effective to catch the bad apples and to let the good people do what they do. And if a business is suffering on Main Street, then they need to get creative and embrace what has happened naturally. And, we can't fight the current, but we can encourage and guide it. So I hope that we can preserve the traditions here in Kalispell with the cruise nights, and a measure to put in place a permit or something along that line is an overreach, and it's not supported or by necessity or law. That's it. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close public comment this evening, and I guess maybe come back to the council real quick on your thoughts, if you had any. Ryan?
Yeah, I'd just like to thank public comment. I thought that was great discussion, hearing from folks, all the different perspectives. And I'm just hopeful that there's some self-policing with the folks who participate in crews. You know, keep it within a certain number of hours. Know that there's some folks trying to put kids to bed, try and sleep. Don't do it every Friday. Know that businesses want to bring some folks into downtown to shop who aren't thrilled about crews, and so they want to be able to be downtown some Fridays. And don't alter your vehicles to make them louder, because there's a lot of folks that don't like that. And be a good neighbor. So I hope the discussion's been productive and we move forward in a better place. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, I guess I would agree. This was a good discussion. It's good to hear from everybody. You know, where I'm kind of at with it is if we're going to do something as a government, I want it to be something that is effective government. I don't see, you know, any of these proposed ordinances just because other cities may have them, may not, that they're not effective. And I don't want to go through and do something just for show. You know, put something out there and say, okay, there, we went and did it. So I want effective government, and I guess, Doug, I'm not for moving this forward any further. So is that?
Yeah, I don't think we have a majority that wants to move it forward. Right. You know, I guess you continue to observe and monitor. You know, we'll continue the efforts on the enforcement perspective. As you heard, there's a large, big loop, and there's a resource component. And sometimes just adding more people isn't always going to be the solution. It's just going to be that continued effort. And I think, you know, the efforts the department has gone through has definitely had an impact. I mean, you're still going to hear concerns and questions because there's always going to be a place where an officer is not. And that's usually where people try and do those things. But I think, you know, it's had impact, and I think we'll continue on that effort. And I say just kind of keep monitoring the situation, and hopefully the information we've had, really the best policing is when you don't have law enforcement involved, and it's the community policing itself. That is always the best in the nature. And heard a lot of things tonight, and I think it's one of those things you just move forward and keep an eye on it and see what moves forward.
Okay. All right. I'm going to go ahead and close tonight's discussion and move into city manager report.
Yeah, and I just have, you know, obviously we'll be meeting next week for our regular meeting. The week after that, Veterans Day is on a Monday, and a majority of council will be headed towards National League of Cities on that Tuesday, so there'll be no work session on that second week in November. And that's all I have.
Okay, anything from the council?
I've got some.
Mr. Dowd.
Yeah, just real quick, just a couple comments that we heard.
Want to hold off?
Okay.
Yeah, we'll hold off. Just. All right.
All right. Yeah, so I just wanted to make sure that the public was aware that, you know, we heard some things during public comment that I thought were a little bit concerning. We heard that, well, one item that we did not discuss during our conversation about the cruise, but we did hear in public comment is that there's speeding and dangerous driving on Main Street and the side streets. Many of the comments mentioned that it was not only cruise night, but it was many of the nights. This is something the council can address. We can have a larger law enforcement presence in those areas if we direct our law enforcement to do so. So that did not fall on deaf ears. I would just encourage people to use community solutions. I'm always a community solutions guy. Government can only apply force. That's the only thing we can do. And we don't want to have to do that because it always has bad outcomes. But when the community does things, we get good outcomes. I'm hoping that the cruise individuals will hold each other accountable. You can discourage, ostracize, and shame the troublemakers. Frequent downtown businesses on purpose. Let them know that you're part of the cruise culture. Visit restaurants on Main Street and invite out-of-town friends to participate in the cruise and put them up at a down hotel. These are all things that we can do to make sure that we know that the cruise community is supporting the downtown and its businesses and the city. So those are my comments.
Thanks, Sid. Mr. Nonnelly.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, today is National First Responder Day, so I'd like to thank Chief. Please pass along to all your officers the great work you do. Same with our fire department and our ambulance services. I think we are well served in our community, and I appreciate everything that you all do for that. So,
Ms. Gabriel.
Thank you, Mr. President. I really appreciated the conversation tonight amongst council members as well as from the audience. It's a very, I wouldn't say a contentious issue so much as there's a lot of heart and soul on both sides of it. So I appreciated it staying civil, and I appreciated especially the members of the cruise community standing up for doing the right thing and hopefully doing some self-policing. Everyone has a cell phone. Every phone has a camera and a video camera. And maybe, like Mr. Dowd said, publicly shaming the bad apples will hopefully help. And I have high hopes that we can move forward and perhaps have some more lawful cruises down the line. Thanks.
Yeah, and I agree. And I hope that, through this discussion that, it fosters a healthy respect between both sides and for the community. Cruise culture, like you said, Sid, so cruise culture, maybe, it's supposed to bring vibrancy to an area. And I like what it can do for our younger youth and everything. That's all true stuff, but it needs to be respectful too of the people living in the area. And so going through, and it was very helpful, I think, for a lot of people that were here to go through and hear from the other side of how they're being affected. But the thing is there's people that aren't here that aren't hearing that, and that's always going to be the case. So I'm hopeful that going on, into the future, that maybe this will carry, grow some fruit and help out. So it was a good discussion. Though we needed it. It's good that it was had. So, and Mayor Johnson did not pass anything down for me to bring out. So with that, we'll adjourn.